Happy Thursday or Friday, Junior, as I sometimes like to call it. Welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World. I'm, of course, your host, David Onplay Humpin. Right there is my co-host, Mr. TJ Hopkins. And on today's show, we're going to check in on the NBA playoffs, round one. And we're going to talk about some of those head coaches that got fired almost 2 weeks ago now that we have not gotten a chance to talk about, as they are the first two dominoes to fall in the NBA season. Welcome into the show. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Also share the link to our plethora of streaming platforms. So go check us out over there as well. If you get a little bit of background noise, just a heads up. But welcome into the show. Let's talk basketball. TJ, what do you think about the opening round so far?
I don't consider that to be our style. That brings us to Kerry Farrell, who's an interesting player because he's a little more well-rounded. He is a strong arm archetype quarterback, but with solid to good speed and great to elite acceleration.
I think TJ may be like asleep on the show. I'm just going to remove him for a second. Let him jump back in when he comes back. But yeah, welcome back into the show. But yeah, this is NBA playoffs round one check-in. We're going to be talking about the NBA playoffs. I have actually enjoyed the playoffs so far. I do think, obviously some of the teams are just better than some of the others. That's why they have early round matchups. That's the way these things shake out. But there's been a little bit of inconsistent officiating. Draymond Green is going to miss game 3, I think, tonight. So that's kind of a detriment to that series. But Kawhi Leonard obviously not going to play tonight either, which is, pretty baffling given the fact they don't have Paul George and the series that's tied 1 game apiece. Just surprising there. But yeah, let's talk about it a little bit. Let's jump right into the first round matchups. We got the Sacramento Kings, the upstart Sacramento Kings, going up against the 6 seed Golden State Warriors, and the Kings are up 2-0, taking care of business at home and lighting the beam there in Sacramento. Draymond Green, as I mentioned, is suspended for Game 3 for that stop. Yeah, I picked that stop. Pretty dirty. Pretty dirty play. If Domantas Sabonis had gotten legitimately really injured, I don't know what the narrative be or the conversation would be. He might miss the rest of the series. Domantas Sabonis is questionable for this Game 3. But this is the same thing as the 6-3 series. This series does not change at all until a team loses at home. No team has done that yet to this point. I think the big difference for Sacramento and Golden State is the bench play that Sacramento has seen out of Malik Monk, who's just come off the bench and been an instant spark plug on offense. The dude can just really score with that bench role. He's perfectly suited for it. It's a perfect role for Malik Monk. It also takes a little bit of pressure off of those other guys to perform. Welcome back into the show, TJ. You were getting, I think you were listening to a podcast, and this is the only thing I could hear.
Yeah, I had a video playing. Sorry.
It's all good, man. We're talking about Sacramento Golden State. Kings up 2-1. Let's first talk about the Draymond Green suspension. I am on the record saying that he totally justified the suspension. It was a Bush League play. I do not think he was trying to make any kind of basketball play. He deserved to get suspended.
And Sabonis is not innocent in this either. Like, you don't grab somebody's ankle.
But it did look like he was trying to protect. It did look like he was trying to just protect his head from some sort of.
Yeah, but you can do that without grabbing somebody's ankle.
Sure.
Not right. And Draymond, you don't.
But he also doesn't have the reputation, because a lot of this suspension has to do with the reputation of Draymond Green.
Yeah, and Joe Dumars has come out and said that it's like also if he wasn't suspended for that anyway, like his next technical foul, he would have been suspended for a game anyway because he has accumulated that many technical fouls.
I don't think that rule. I don't think that rule. Oh, it does. I thought that when we get into the playoffs, that number resets.
Why would it go back? Why would it just go back to 0? No,
I always thought that's the way it worked. I mean, obviously I'm wrong, but I always thought that when you get to the playoffs, your technical foul number resets.
That doesn't go back to 0. This is like no, it's just. But Draymond, he has to be smarter. Like you would think that he did all this talking about after the 2016 season, how he learned his lesson, how he cost his team a championship. I'm never going to put my team in that situation again. And it seems like you don't learn. And to make matters worse, I don't even think it was the stomp that got him the suspension. It was the failure to leave the stadium or leave the court after he got ejected. He's on the he's on the Warrior sideline. He's standing up on the chairs. He's yelling profanities at the King fans, and you're doing this in front of the commissioner. Adam Silver was there. Like Adam Silver was there. Like and it is very clear. You're on camera calling several people of the Kings or Kings fans, calling them the P word. I can't say that, but David knows.
Your technical fouls reset when the playoffs start.
Whatever.
100%. But anyways, yeah, I just think your reputation is what your reputation is. When you're Draymond Green, this is what happens. Let's talk about the difference in the series. As the Kings are up 2-0, because even without this, they're still beating Golden State, even with Draymond Green for majority of these games. They've just been tougher mentally. Like Sacramento has played like they belong.
Yeah, that's what happens to dynasty teams. They get older, and and then another team comes up and usurps them. Clay's not the defender that he used to be. That's just what it is. It used to be Clay would have no problem guarding De'Aaron Fox or Malik Monk for an extended period of time. You can't ask him to do that now. Draymond Green would have no problem guarding a Domantas Sabonis or an Alex Len or whatever. No problem.
It hasn't even really been Domantas Sabonis that's beaten the Golden State Warriors. This has been the guard play and Trey Lyles going off in one game. Like, I mean, Domantas Sabonis, yeah, his numbers are okay. 18 points and 12 rebounds. I mean, that's okay. But De'Aaron Fox, 31 points for this series. Malik Monk, 25 points for this series so far. Those two guys have been difference makers for Sacramento.
And Mike Brown. Mike Brown knows that team inside and out.
Yep.
He knows what makes him tick. He knows what, yeah, like he knows it all. So like, flat out, like the Kings they have been the better team. That's it. Yep. That's all.
Let's talk about who wins the series. Kings up 2-0. Series really doesn't start until a team loses at home. Do Sacramento finish this out, and how many games do they finish it out in? If they do finish it out, in your opinion.
Well, I originally picked the Kings in 7. I don't see any, unless they win tonight, then that drastically changes that prediction. So, like, if they win tonight, it's definitely looking like Kings in 5, maybe 6.
I agree with you. I think if the Kings win tonight, I think it's at 5. The Golden State has not proven they can win on the road. They just haven't.
So, but the Sacramento Kings had the second best road record in the NBA behind, I think, Milwaukee. So that puts them best in the West. They had the best road record out of all the teams in the West. So yeah, no reason for if they win tonight, there's no reason why this shouldn't go 5.
Yep, 100%.
And as long as they withstand the blitzkrieg, because it's coming. Like, you got an amped up Warriors team, an amped up crowd. They feel like they getting slighted. It's this whole us against the world thing, and it's just like, nah, Draymond, you're just an idiot. Yeah. So if they withstand the blitzkrieg, they can win tonight.
To the 4-5 matchup, we got that game on tonight. Series tied at 1 game apiece as Clippers won game 1. Phoenix Suns bounced back in 1 game 2. Kawhi Leonard with some knee soreness is going to be missed game 3. Paul George is not expected to play this series at all. What's been the difference for this series? Kevin Durant didn't take as many shots in the first game, took a bunch of shots in the second game. Devin Booker really went off in the second game. But it really comes down to who wins this series. And what do you think about this Kawhi Leonard situation? You kind of made your opinion very loud and clear in the group chat.
Yeah, dude, I'm out on him. Like, you haven't played in a playoff series in 2 years. 2 years. And all of a sudden you somehow tweaked your knee in game 1, which nobody saw. Then you magically play through it in game 2, and now you're out for game 3. Like, you have a new owner who is not a quote unquote patient man. He is invested in you. He's invested time. He's invested money. He's investing a new stadium. Like, bro, like, the least you can do is stand by that guy.
Yep.
Like,
and be available even if you're not.
And be available.
Like, nobody at this point of the season is 100%.
Nobody's 100%.
Like, you just have to. I'm baffled. I cannot believe it. Like, he played pretty well in game 2. He's been the highest scoring. He's playoff.
He's been the best player in this series. Not even close.
He's been the best playoff player. He has the highest scoring total of any player in any series so far through 2 games. 69 points. Nice.
And all of a sudden it's grow up. And all of a sudden it's oh, my knee is sore. I got this sprain. It's like, dude, come on. So, like, now you're gonna leave Westbrook out there all by himself. And if Westbrook has a bad game, he's gonna get unjustifiably crucified.
100%. So yeah, it's. I don't know. I don't really want to make of it. It's kind of bushly on Kawhi Leonard's part. You probably should, if your team's on the line here, all you have to do is get through this series and you get Paul George back and you have an opportunity to really make a run at this. The Western Conference is so open right now. It's unbelievable. Like, anybody could come out of the West and play if you can. I understand that, like, if there's maybe circumstances that are, maybe he can't play. Maybe he can't walk on it. But if that's the case, he's going to miss the rest of the series. This series is over.
Because, like, he's out for this game, and he's day to day for game 4. And if he's out for game, like, which probably
if they
going to
lose,
lead to him.
if they lose them both, might as well not even suit up for Game 5 because it'll be a
Seriously.
5-game series. The game will be seriously over, and another series where the Clippers have some promise goes in the toilet.
And what a disappointing end, because all you did was tease us these first 2 games about how great you really are, and all of a sudden you just give us a subtle reminder of, oh, we can't rely on you. We
Yep.
can't go like we crucified Anthony Davis for not being reliable. We crucified Zion for not being reliable, dude. Like Zion and AD, they got all the nicknames. They like Chuck,
Street
Charles
clothes.
Barkley. Yeah, Charles Barkley literally calls AD street clothes. Hey, no, y'all gotta have that same smoke for Kawhi Leonard, because what the hell?
Yeah, I think he also gets a pass. He gets a pass on a lot of this stuff, but it's ridiculous at this point. I don't know. Let's talk about who wins this series. If Kawhi Leonard doesn't play in Game 4, this will be a 5-game series.
This will be a 5-game
The
series.
Suns will eliminate the Los Angeles Clippers, and another series will go down the toilet. I'm hoping Kawhi Leonard hears the noise, plays in Game 4.
No, he hears it. He just it's been proven
he
time and time again. He doesn't care. Like, you can say what you want to say about him. Like, he doesn't care what's said about him. He's gonna do what's best for him. And
I think a lot of he used to be like everybody's favorite player for a long time for saying stuff like that. But I think the tide is for sure turned. Like,
yeah, because it's like
Kawhi Leonard is his own guy. He's not one of those guys that's going to bow down, blah blah blah. But like now, it's getting to the point where it's getting a little old.
Very, very, and yeah. So in Game 2, Tyloo did something. I'm like, bro, like there was no need to double Kevin Durant. He wasn't going on a tear. So like you doubling, and I understand Matt is the resident Phoenix Sun fan. He's like, that's the thing. You can't double Phoenix now. I'm like, no, you're missing the point. There was no need to double anybody.
Yeah, Kevin Durant didn't really have it cooking. You could have easily done straight up coverage and try to just play mano, and see what happens. It's sad that we won't. It's sad that we won't see a legitimate series now with Kawhi Leonard being out. Let's move on to the 1-8 matchup and the 2-7 matchup. Denver Nuggets up 2-0. They basically have Borderland dominated most of this series. I know there was a period where Minnesota sort of came back in Game 2 to make things interesting, but the Nuggets just have been the better team in this series. What's the difference so far?
Denver's better. Like that's it. You can chop it up to a lot of Minnesota not having that rapport with each other. Like again, Karl-Anthony Towns.
I think that's just a convenient excuse.
Like Karl-Anthony Towns.
They're just not good enough to beat this team. They're just not.
Like it's like I would love to see what Minnesota would have been able to do had Cat not missed basically the entire season.
Me too.
Like, because let's not act like that didn't play a role in them being the 8 seed. I had my trepidations about the move in the first place, because when they first made the move, you asked, will this work? I'm like, it ain't no will it work. I'm like, it better work. Like, this has to work. If you're in Minnesota, this has to work. Like this isn't no, oh, we'll be better next year. Like, no, this has to work. You have to understand, if this fails, you're set back for the better part of at least half a decade.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long 5 years. The only way I can see you recouping anything, because you're not going to trade Gobert and get what you got for him. I don't see you trading Cat, and I damn sure don't see you trading Anthony Edwards. So like you're stuck. Like literally, all your money is tied into 3 guys.
Yep. But yeah, Denver has just been a better team. I think that's the big difference in this series. Minnesota doesn't have an answer. The others for Denver have stepped up. We talked about in the preview. They're getting production out of Jamal Murray. I think he's actually the highest scoring player in this series so far, at least on Denver's side. Michael Porter Jr. has been okay. But yeah, they've gotten production from the other guys. It hasn't been all on Nikola Jokic. And this is what we've kind of been waiting for the last 2 years.
Jamal Murray dropped 40 last night. So yeah. That's.
So who wins the series? I think it's pretty
Oh,
obvious. I think Denver is going to win this series. How many games it goes, I think, is up for debate. But this will be a Denver Nuggets victory when it's all said and done.
again, it all depends. Like I legit think it all depends on how Game 3 goes. If they, again, Minnesota's going to be, they're going to be loud. They're going to be raucous. If Denver can withstand that early blitzkrieg, because that's like Minnesota's going to come out firing. They're going to come out gunning. They're going to try to punch them in the mouth early in Minnesota. If Denver can withhold that, like if they get up 20, if they get up big, which they're capable of doing, they get up 20, and Denver somehow cuts it to 10 to a certain point. Yeah, yeah, Denver's gonna be fine. Yeah, they're gonna be fine.
I agree with you. Moving on to the 2-7 matchup, Memphis Grizzlies and the Los Angeles Lakers.
Oh,
Lakers
come on. That's a weak call. He tripped on it. Like, come on. Royce O'Neal is not pushing Joel Embiid down.
Anyways, Los Angeles Lakers really let a golden opportunity slip away from them in Game 2 as they came out pretty lackadaisical. We talked about in the group chat a little bit about Anthony Davis and his stat line during that game.
No, I talked about it and you ignored it.
I ignored it. You're right, because I was sleeping. I sleep at those times, DJ. All right. But yeah, John Morant missed Game 2. The Lakers came out with very little energy, and they basically got out hustled constantly by Memphis, and they end up falling in Game 2. I can't remember what the final score is, but the score is now tied 2 games apiece. John Morant missed Game 2. He's day-to-day for Game 3, but I imagine he's going to give it a go if he can grip the basketball. That was the big issue. Let's talk about this series. What's kind of stood out for you?
The final score was 103-93 in Game 2. What stood out? What has stood out? The others. Right? The others on both teams. Like Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura balled Game 1. Effing phenomenal. Right? They were phenomenal. Game 2, the others for Memphis balled. Xavier Tillman had
the game of his freaking life.
Xavier Tillman had a game. Desmond Bain had a game.
I don't know what. Like I was semi watching because we were running a podcast yesterday around the same time as the game was on, right? And like I turned the game on and like I'm watching who they're interviewing after the game. I'm telling you honestly, I didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
Xavier
Tillman outplayed Anthony Davis. Like think about that. And Mr. U, I'm not worried about Anthony Davis. Yeah, 38 minutes, 13 and 8. 13 and 9, excuse me. 13 and 9 with 3 fouls. Like he was in foul trouble. He only had 3 fouls.
I don't know. He only took 14 shots. I mean, he was woefully inefficient from the field. LeBron basically tried to carry this team by himself with 28 points. But I think that's going to be the big difference in the series. Even if John Morant comes back, like what they get on a night-to-night basis from the other guys. Dennis Schroeder was also pretty good in Game 1, terrible in Game 2, missed every shot he took. Rudy Hachimura was still solid in Game number 2.
20
points. Yeah, 20 points. Malik Beasley needs to find his shooting stroke. He was one of the better shooters in the NBA. When he was a Minnesota Timberwolf, at least, but only he's been just pedestrian as a Laker. 7 points. D'Angelo Russell also had his best shooting percentage from the 3-point line in his career this season. 1 of 5 in this game against.
Like 2 for 11 for the whole game.
2-11 from the field. Like they just have to get more production from the others. And on the same side, I mean, Desmond Bain had a pretty solid game there. 17 points out of him. I mean, Luke Kennard came off the bench. It gave them 13 solid points, making 3 out of 4 threes. So yeah, they just need to get better production from the other guys. Like I think you're going to get. I think you're going to get what you get from Anthony Davis. LeBron James, I think you know what you're going to get out of him. 30 points, 10 rebounds, 5 or 6 assists. I do expect more out of Anthony Davis. I mean, I expect the 2010 player out of him every single night, but he just hasn't. He did have 5 blocks. One of them was super nasty earlier in the game.
And John Conchar, what he scored? He only scored 2 points, but he had 2 blocks. One of them on Anthony Davis.
Yeah, he has one steal.
Santi Aldama, no points, but he grabbed 7 boards. Like that's finding ways to make
That's also about knowing your role as well. I mean,
yeah,
you're not on the floor to shoot the ton. Like you take 3 shots, you're a 3-point shooter, a 3 stretch guy. You get 7 rebounds, get 2 assists. Give some hustle, get some energy. Third highest plus minus on the team.
I was literally thinking about this like last night at work, and I'm just so I was listening to because I listen to most of my podcasts at night because I'm asleep when they're on. Otherwise, I'd probably watch them live and all the other good stuff. But they're talking about it was like first take. It was like Stephen A. like the rotations get shorter, and I'm like that never sat right with me. So I'm like Memphis is the perfect example. You want to know why Taylor Jenkins is comfortable playing John Conchar 14 minutes in the playoff game and Santi Aldama 14 minutes in the playoff game?
Because he plays legitimate minutes in the regular season. Like those guys,
Or David Roddy 21 minutes in a playoff game because he plays them all the time.
I mean, Monty Williams is another guy who hasn't shortened his rotation so far in the playoffs this year. So I actually think that maybe we're seeing sort of when we had trend going in the other direction.
And Monty Williams is the perfect. Like Monty Williams is the guy that doesn't need to shorten his rotation. That's why you built up the bench the way that you did.
100%.
Kevin Durant played like 44 minutes in game 2, right? 44 minutes in game 2.
Well, arguably a game they had to have. I mean, this is when your stars need to be at their best. I mean, if you need to play 44 minutes to win a game, that's so be it.
Like Josh Okogie didn't play game 1, but he played 15 minutes in game 2. Like that's
it was a pretty head scratching decision to not have Josh Okogie play because I think
in game 1, yes.
Yeah, game 1 because he was the starter most of the season. Ended up working out because what's his name ended up playing pretty well. Oh man, his name is totally escaping me.
Torrey Craig.
Thank you very much. But let's swing over into the Eastern Conference. By the way, I've still got the Lakers winning this series in 6 games. I think they get both of them in LA.
I got Memphis. I got Memphis. What did I say? Memphis in 6, 7. Yep. I said Memphis in one of those. I can't remember.
To the Eastern Conference, we got the Milwaukee Bucks, the 1-8 seed. Series is tied at 1. Man, I gotta spell things. Series is tied at 1 game apiece. Giannis Antetokounmpo missed game 2 and injured most of game 1. Tyler Hero injured in game 1, unlikely to return with a broken hand.
They already ruled him out.
Yeah, I think he's done for the series.
Yeah, he's done. He's done.
So let's talk about who wins this series and what's been kind of the difference maker because Milwaukee, came out in game 2, although they did almost let that game slip away as they had a huge lead. And they got Miami Heat chiseled down to about 19 points at one point during that game, but Milwaukee does come back. So I also think it has a lot to do with the fact that you're expecting Giannis to be there in game 1 when you lose him halfway in the first quarter, really. You have your game plan has to change on the fly. That is difficult to do. When you go into a game knowing you're not going to have your best player, you can game plan. You can make decisions, and they did. Brook Lopez was the guy in that game.
Yeah. So obviously, like when you have a time to actually make adjustments versus making adjustments on the fly, especially drastic adjustments like that, yeah, it hits a little different. But yeah, the main difference between games is obviously no Giannis, right? But game 1, Miami shot 60% from the field and from 3. I don't care who you are. I don't care what team you have. If you're not hitting shots and the other team is shooting 60%, you're not beating that team.
And not to mention a Heat team that during the regular season struggled from the field. Like this, I think the game 1 was kind of an outlier for who they are offensively. Milwaukee Bucks showed they're even without Giannis, which I imagine he probably won't play for the rest of the series. Especially if they win game 3. I think they'll sit him out for the rest of the series, and I think they'll just cruise to the next round.
And another team that was built deep for playoff runs. This is why you brought in Joe Ingles. This is Bobby Portis.
Traded for Jay Crowder.
This is why you traded for Jay Crowder. Bobby Portis averages 17 and 10 when he starts, which is very, 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 very respectable. He would have been my 6th man of the year, but maybe he started too many games. I don't know. I have no issue with Malcolm Brogdon winning it. Shout out to Malcolm Brogdon.
I also have no problem with him winning it. I would have been happy with whoever won it, to be totally honest with you.
That's fair. But for Heat fans, especially to be like, I thought we was going to do this. We'd beat y'all anyway if Giannis played. No, you wouldn't have. Shut up. If Giannis doesn't fall flat on his back and bruises his tailbone in game 1, you do not beat them in game 1. Knock it off.
100%. I agree with you on that.
Knock it off, please. Like have some humility. Like y'all lucky y'all got the one you got. Because we saw what happened when Budenholzer was able to make adjustments. And quite frankly, this is what's gonna be. Y'all are just quite frankly, y'all are too small for the Miami Heat. I mean for the Milwaukee Bucks. Y'all are too small. Brook Lopez, like Bam Adebayo can't do nothing with Brook Lopez on the block. You have nobody that can guard Bobby Portis at the three. Like seriously, Chris Middleton is still Chris Middleton. Drew Holiday is still Drew Holiday. Bucks in 5.
Yeah, I got Bucks in 5. Moving on to the bottom side of the bracket, the Celtics
Next,
are already up
next,
2 to
next,
nothing.
next,
But yeah,
next.
Celtics have just been a lot. But let's just move on. The Celtics are sweeping this series. To the other side, we got the Philadelphia 76ers 3-6 against the Brooklyn Nets. Sixers and Nets are playing right now.
Right
That
now,
game is in Brooklyn. 76ers
they're
are up 2 to nothing. So what's been the difference in this series? Outside of one team has Joel Embiid and James Harden, the other team
it's
does not.
been it's been the tale of two halves. We've seen the Brooklyn Nets have two great halves in the first two games. Game one, Mikal Bridges is phenomenal, right? Goes nuts. Game second half, they shut it down. Philly pulls away. Game two, Cam Johnson has a great first half, goes nuts. Second half, they shut it down. Philly pulls away. That's what it is. They just don't have one. They don't have the manpower to combat them, and two, they definitely don't have the superstar power to combat them. What's his name? It's been a bit chippy so far. You know, Joel Embiid, he pulled the Draymond, he kicked Nick Claxton where the sun don't shine,
Yeah, he tried to at
and
least.
no, he connected, he got him.
Okay, all right.
Like and they gave Nick Claxton a tech because he stepped over him, and they issued a flagrant one to Joel Embiid for kicking him. And Reggie Miller's on the broadcast like, if I'm Draymond Green, I see that, I'm throwing my hands up. It's like, no, you idiot. Embiid don't have a history of kicking people in the nuts
No, I don't, or stopping people, or just
or
they're being
stomping
dirty,
people.
or being dirty in general.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is why respect to Reggie Miller as a basketball player. Like, he was a hell of a player. He's a terrible analyst. He is god awful. He's just for reason that alone, he's just terrible.
He's
But
a little bit hypocritical about the player he was, and he just like the way he acts. But the Sixers, obviously they have Joel Embiid. The Brooklyn Nets have no one who can really match up with him. Yes, this area has been shippy. This is going to be a sweep.
like, bro, like when you see Nick Claxton try to defend Joel Embiid, like it's almost like Nick Claxton's not there. Like, you know he's there. You don't see Nick Claxton until he's taking the ball out of the basket. It's like, oh, there you are.
Yeah.
I see you now.
But yeah, this is going to be a sweep.
The only way, like, bro, like, sorry to cut out. Like, the only way I see Brooklyn getting one is if they just go in fuego from behind the arc. Like, everybody's hitting everything.
And I think they'll get a game. I think this will be maybe 5. I'll give them 5. I'll give Sixers and 5. I think the Brooklyn Nets get game 4. They're sure. I don't think they're winning tonight. So
I can see that, but I'm keeping it a sweep. Yeah. I would love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong.
To the final series here in the Eastern Conference, and the only one, in my opinion, that's even going to be remotely competitive. We got the Cleveland Cavaliers and the New York Knicks. This series is tied at 1 game apiece as the New York Knicks went into Cleveland and stole game 1. Cavaliers came back in game 2 and put the hurting on the New York Knicks as Darius Garland went off and was the best player on the floor. Let's just talk about some storylines to watch here, as these two teams are probably this is the best matchup in the series by far.
Go ahead and get on top. Oh, I wish Izzy was here. He'd talk about it. Get on top Tibbs for playing his guys down and playing them late down 30.
Man, I've been talking about that for.
No, go ahead. Like it's indefensible. Like go off.
I was just gonna ignore it because I just think it's been
but
talked
that's
about.
the thing.
Been talked about so much that
David,
people just.
No, it's been talked about by people like no, it's been talked about by people like us. Again, I'm listening to First Take last night at work. Stephen A brought up, don't be playing Julius Randle late minutes like that when you're down big. It's no point. And Mad Dog Russo brought up, he did the same thing to Derrick Rose. Do you know that is the first time on national airways that's been mentioned? I am not exaggerating.
Man, I legitimately get into it with people about this conversation, even here in Fort Wayne. So I'll go out to. I was at a drinking establishment this weekend, and I was had a conversation with this random dude, and he was talking about the Derrick Rose injury. I'm like, he had no business being on the floor when he got hurt.
He had no business being in the floor.
Like we were up over double digits. Like he's no, but his contract dictates. Ball. I'm like, dude, no, you have no idea.
No, it doesn't.
Like you have no idea what you're talking about. No offense to this guy, but it literally was like one of the most frustrating conversations I've had about basketball in a long time.
I am so serious. Like that is the first time I ever heard them mention Tom Thibodeau is the reason Derrick Rose tore his ACL. Like that,
Tom Thibodeau is the reason that Luol Deng almost died.
Back to the point I mentioned earlier about
Also, real quick, welcome to the show, Izzy.
I think he'll be back. He had to dip out. I think about the point I brought up earlier about coaches cutting their rotation short. Tom Thibodeau is another one. It's like, dude, you have no, you cannot shorten your rotation. Like, there's no need. Like the dudes that you've been playing all season, just keep playing them. How can you expect them to get ready for big moments if you don't play them in big moments? Makes sense, right? Like,
I don't really understand. I mean, Emmanuel Quigley only played 23 minutes in this game. I know it was basically a blowout, but yeah, Julius Randle should be on the floor in that case. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Miles McBride had a fairly decent rotation during the regular season. No more, like Miles McBride was probably getting no more than 12 to 15 minutes a game, right? No reason to not keep giving him those 12 to 15 minutes. Seriously, the only reason they played the minutes they played, RJ Barrett only played 33 minutes because I don't know why. Brunson played 36 minutes. Mitchell Robinson played 21 minutes. Why is Mitchell Robinson?
I mean, that's basically the minutes he plays, about on his average.
Hardenstein 27, Josh Hart 27. Josh Hart played 27 minutes on a bum ankle, by the way.
If there are some players that can play through injuries, and there's Kawhi Leonard.
And on the flip side, JB Bickerstaff, you playing Evan Mobley 39 minutes in the blowout? Why? Darius Garland 36 minutes.
Donovan Mitchell's playing 39 minutes in a blowout.
Karis LeVert played 40 in a blowout. Why?
He had his best game in months. So maybe.
Did Isaac Okoro get hurt? He only played 3 minutes.
He tweaked his knee and then basically didn't play for the rest of the game.
He
he is scheduled to start for them on Saturday night's game. So kudos to that medical staff. But
I'd say Knicks in 7. That was my original prediction.
I'm still going to stick with Cavs in 7. I think they're still more talented than the Knicks, but I think this series is going to be tight. It's going to be real close. I can 100% see them splitting in the Big Apple. I think Cavs win game 3. I think it comes down to whoever wins game 5. Whoever wins game 5 will win this series.
Oh yeah. I think Cavs win game 3, and I think the Knicks bounce back, win game 4. Cleveland probably wins game 5 back in Cleveland. Knicks win 6 back in New York, and they go back to Cleveland for game 7. And I got the Knicks winning in 7.
I'll take the Cavs at 7. To the final point we talk about today, the first 2 head coaching dominoes fall in the NBA. I know we're a little bit behind on covering this, as this happened almost 2 weeks ago, or over 2 weeks ago now, actually. But we figured we'd talk about it a little bit here today. Usually there's about 5 or 6 head coaching changes every offseason. These just happen to be the first 2 guys. Steven Silas, first guy we're going to talk about, is out as the Rockets head coach. The Rockets declined his 5th-year option. 59-117 is the head coach. He was basically coaching a team full of really young players. The Rockets won 22 games this past season. Maybe overachieved a little bit based on what people thought they'd be. Let's talk about did Silas get a fair shake, and where do the Rockets go from here?
No, he didn't get a fair shake. So if I'm Steven Silas, I'm we already talked about it. Steven Silas, he accepted this job thinking he's inheriting James Harden and Russell Westbrook. And then all of a sudden, within like a week of him getting that job, James Harden is traded out. Westbrook is traded out. And he's left with the island of the misfit toys. And it went about how you expected it to go. A bunch of young.
I think if you want to criticize anything that Steven Silas did, it's the development of the young guys because their maturity just wasn't there under him as a head coach.
And he can only play a role in that so much.
Yeah, true. But I think it felt like the players had kind of started to not listen to him as the head coach of this basketball team, especially last season when they had that incident at the locker room.
With
their
Kevin
players
Porter
went home. Yeah, Kevin Porter Jr. and Christian Wood
just
went home.
They went home.
So I still don't think he got a fair shake, but I'm not surprised that the Houston Rockets decided to move off of him.
I'm not. So this is what's going to happen. He's going to be an assistant on somebody's staff for another handful of years, and then somebody hopefully will give him another shake. Like he needs to learn from like a Greg like a Greg Pop, a Spoelstra, even put him on Tibbs' staff. Let him sit under a coach like Tibbs. That'll do him some justice too.
I'll give him the best. I'll give him the best option to be on. What's going on, TJ? What's going on, David?
What's up, man?
It took me a while to get up on here. I'm sorry, guys. I shared the show and then everything was just I couldn't hear you guys. Anyways, I think the best option for Steven Silas is to go to college. Is to go be a head coach at a college. To be, go be a head coach at a Big Ten school, SEC school, Big East school. You're a former NBA coach. I think if he can lead a program to like Sweet 16, Elite 8, even a Natty, something like that, like in the midst of like what Kevin Alley did, who's being considered to be a head coach for like Detroit or Houston, right?
Detroit.
Yeah,
Detroit.
You know what I mean. And he took UConn to the Natty, off of Jim Calhoun's recruits, but you know what I'm saying. So he still won it. But so that's what I'm trying to say is he needs it
as a assistant head coach and a scout before getting that job. I actually think maybe him going to the G League would be kind of helpful to him coaching men because I think that's where he kind of struggled.
Again, I just think it's like one.
He's also a lot older than he looks.
I don't necessarily. I mean, I just think coaching.
I would have guessed he was like in his mid-30s.
Going to college, playing the coaching in the NBA is you got to be a different breed. I don't think he has the temperament for that. I think he's best suited for a college program. Like Fred Hoiberg is a good college coach, but he's not a good NBA coach because his temperament's different. He had success at Iowa State. He's having some success at Nebraska. Not really, but yeah.
No, he's had no success at Nebraska.
He's had no success at Nebraska, but I mean,
he was a good coach at Iowa State before.
He was a great coach. He's the mayor. He's the mayor, man. Come on, man. It's Fred Hoiberg, the mayor, baby. And so I think he's best suited for college right now in his career. I think you go to college, coach there for 10 years, come back to the NBA.
See, I think the problem with that is like once you've been at that. The NBA is the creme de la creme. Like once you've had that, no matter how bad it went, once you've had that, you don't want to take a demotion. Like that's basically what they view college as. Like, bro, like that's a demotion.
Man, you get paid in college though. Demotion?
You get paid in the NBA too.
Millions. Yeah, you getting paid. I mean, God. Why? There's a reason why Coach K didn't go to the NBA. There's a reason why Jim Calhoun, Jim Boeheim didn't come because those guys was getting paid in college. Yeah. I just named off like 3-4 guys, 3 legendary guys. Those guys are getting paid. Rick Pitino getting paid. Rick Pitino was getting paid before the scandal at Louisville. So I mean,
Okay,
you can get.
Rick Pitino's not a good example because he got demoted too. Rick Pitino did coach the Celtics.
Yeah.
That did happen.
Yeah, he did. Well. Yep, he did. You right about that. Yeah, he did. He did.
That did happen.
I mean, and look at a guy like Juwan Howard. My bad, guys. Look at a guy like Juwan Howard, assistant coach. You know, veteran for all those years, and went down to Michigan.
No,
you know
but
what I mean. So
I think that's just him. Like, hey, I've only been an assistant for God knows how long. Juwan Howard.
A handful of years. It was a handful of years.
Juwan Howard was an assistant for a fairly decent time. And he just kept getting passed up. Like, he wasn't even getting interviewed for jobs. And all of a sudden, hey, he like, all right, I'm just going to be a head coach here. Like, the fact that Tom Thibodeau waited 18 years to be somebody's head coach says more about Tom Thibodeau than it does the process. I don't know too many people that would wait damn near 20 years to get their first head coaching job.
There's two teams, franchises that I think if he does go back to the NBA bench, which I think he will, the Golden State Warriors and the San Antonio Spurs, like David mentioned, probably.
Yeah, I mean,
those two franchises, especially Golden State, those assistant coaches are turning out jobs left and right. I mean, Kenny Atkinson is about to,
or you can go to the Hawks and be under
Quinn Snyder.
Quinn
Snyder,
yeah.
So. But moving on from Paul Silas and the Houston Rockets, let's talk about Dwayne Casey. He's out as the Pistons head coach. They're moving him to the front office. So his record is 121 and 263. Another team full of just young players who only won 17 games this past season. You do remember how long ago it was his first year as the Pistons head coach. They made the playoffs.
Blake
and
Griffin
every season after that, they basically were 20 wins, sub 20, 25 win teams. I think it was time for a difference, a change at the head coaching position. But what do the Pistons do now? They're going to be up for a lottery pick. They're going to be in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. I'd like.
Yeah, you getting Cade Cunningham back next year.
Yep.
Jaden Ivey. You got Jaden Ivey's.
You have like the land of the misfit big men, the players, team like
James
Wiseman, baby.
That's the problem. That's the problem. So like, obviously, Wembanyama is a generational talent, right? But if you add Wembanyama to that cluster F of a front court.
I mean, you got Jalen Duren too, who had a pretty solid rookie season.
Right? So that's what I'm saying. So you got Jalen Duren, Marvin.
He's better than him already.
Marvin Bagley,
Marvin Bagley, who's low key outperforming his contract right now.
Right,
Victor Wembanyama goes to the Detroit Pistons. He's the best player on the Detroit Pistons. That's just all I gotta say.
I think if you're Detroit, I don't think you worry about this big man lockjaw. You're not that invested into James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley, where you're going to be like, you know what, let's not take, because they have the same problem at the guard position. The other guy they could take is Scoot Henderson. They already have two guards on their team. They're not going to take another guard. That makes even less sense.
You know what would make even more sense for them? Brandon Miller. That's who would make more sense for them. They need a three.
The only scenario that makes sense is if they don't end up.
If they're like the third pick, if they got the third pick, exactly.
Yeah.
If you got the first overall pick, you don't skip out on Victor Wembanyama. And honestly, man, you can play Jalen Duren. You have a big ass front court. With the 3, 4, and 5, you could play Jalen Duren. You could play Marvin Bagley, and you could play Victor Wembanyama on the same court because Victor Wembanyama has those skills at the wing position where he can handle the ball and stuff like that. So, I think, honestly, Kevin Ollie would be a perfect hire for this head coaching job. I mean, I think he would be.
No.
Because he's a young coach, he'll help them grow. He's a guy that's willing to grow with them. You know what I mean?
I think they need a guy who's been there, done that. Because I think that if you're
Kenny Atkinson would be perfect.
100%. Like, this team has to be done rebuilding. Like, if whatever pick they end up with, this has to be a team that takes a legitimate step forward. I mean, they've been this team basically since they bought out Blake Griffin 4 years ago or however long ago it was. And they've been basically a basement dwelling team in the Eastern Conference ever since. And they acquired young talent through, various means, either trading for them, but players that teams didn't want, or in the draft. And this has to be a stat where you move past that. Like you have to take the Oklahoma City type jump. Finally, it cannot be.
Here's the issue. Does Kenny Atkinson want this job?
I mean, if you're
a guy like Kenny Atkinson want this job because he wants to.
If I'm
Go ahead.
If I'm any of these head coaching candidates, right, and I look at this Detroit Pistons job, yeah, I sure as shit want this job. I have Cade Cunningham, I have Jaden Ivey, I have a bunch of that were like lottery pick big men that are on the roster right now.
I have capital galore.
I have draft capital. I have the opportunity to end up with Victor Wembanyama on my team. Yeah, I'm taking this job. This is like one of the best jobs in the league.
One of the best jobs in the league?
Yeah, it's not like, we'll get to it on potentially who's next. It's not like if you were like, get the Bulls job right now. I don't think that's a great job.
No, it's not a great job. No, the Bulls job isn't a great job. But this job, you're talking about. These guys are still 2 years away, bro.
Not to mention, Detroit has shown a willingness to be patient with the guy up. Like they let Dwayne Casey stink it up.
These guys have not
still didn't fire him. They moved into the front office.
These guys are still 2 years away, bro. They're still 2 years away from even making a jump like
if they end up with,
they don't have a guy like SGA. You got to remember.
If they end up with Victor Wembanyama, they'll make the playoffs next year.
That's
Well,
hey.
you know what?
If they end up with I don't disagree with you on that, David. I don't agree. But my thing is though, this team, if they do get a Victor Wembanyama, okay, now you got your SGA type of guy. But you got to remember though, before I praise they got K Cunningham, but he's not an SGA type of player. He hasn't proven that. He hasn't proven that either. This guy, this is the thing. I've always praised Chris Paul. Wembanyama for to come in and he's gonna be better than everybody on that court. I mean, that's what my thing is. My thing is he's gonna come in. It doesn't matter.
You're projecting.
He's projecting. I mean, he went against two first round picks in the G League and he dominated for 2 games.
That's the G League. That's why the G League.
But he went against two top 25 picks in the G League and dominated.
That's why the G League's the G League, bro. Like that.
And against grown men.
Don't do that.
And he dominated and he actually dominated against Asbel, which is a EuroLeague.
In the EuroLeague,
club,
he plays against grown men too.
He's in a friend. He plays. I mean, they play more. They play physical as hell. They let them get away with a lot of crap down there in France. Like what I was trying to say is that I credit Chris Paul a lot for OKC's development because if that year let me know like SGA like sat back and saw Chris Paul the leadership, the moxie. All that stuff. Lou Dort did the same thing. Those guys took a jump, even though they
SGA was already good that season. He was in LA. Like that first season he was in LA. He was good there. Like he was.
But he took an extra jump, bro. Chris Paul. But he took a jump though. That's what I'm saying, bro. He went from 20 to like 30 points a game the last 2 seasons. He's averaged in between 28 and 30 a game.
But like to say that Wembanyama's their SGA, no, that's false. Like
I never said he was gonna be the SGA. I said he's gonna be the best player on the Pistons. I never said he was. I said they didn't have an SGA. I said that he's gonna be the best player on the Pistons.
Did he not just say Wembanyama is their SGA? Did he not just say?
No, I said that he's gonna be the best player on the Pistons. I never said he's gonna be an SGA.
I may or may not have heard that. Anyways, my God. Moving on from these two jobs, as they got kind of heated there with the Pistons conversation, let's talk about who's the potential.
They're 2 years away, bro. They're 2 years away from making the playoffs, bro. In the East, come on, guys.
No,
stop it.
They can make the playoffs next year in the East.
They ain't making the playoffs next year. Y'all better cut it out. Stop it.
Moving on from
I'll bet y'all 200.
I don't
both of y'all. I'll bet y'all 200. Both of y'all. That's 200. I'll take the money. 200. I'm putting it up. 200. They won't make the play in next year.
You bet David.
Guarantee that.
You bet David that. I ain't said nothing.
Exactly. You're so confident to put your money where your mouth is. How about that? Or anybody else in the comments?
David, hold on. Izzy, why is you saying y'all? That's David talking about playoffs. I ain't saying
Moving on from the Pistons. We would never call for anybody's job, but if You think the coaches that are on the hot seat, who could potentially be the next coach on the chopping block in the NBA?
It ain't Billy Donovan, so go ahead and get it out.
I'm actually gonna. I'm not gonna go Billy Donovan, even though I did have a lengthy conversation with that same gentleman at the bar. I do think he will be gone by this time next year.
Yeah, that's fair.
Especially
time
if
next
they
year,
don't.
that's fair.
If they don't turn it around, I actually think the guy that I think is potentially the guy and the next guy is Nick Nurse. I think
Yes.
I think he took a team that made the playoffs last season, and they regressed under the second year with Nick Nurse. The offense hasn't been as dynamic because he really benefited by the fact that at one point I thought he was one of the better coaches.
Come on, yeah, Kawhi Leonard.
And I do think he will get another job. If they fire him, he'll get another job like that. But I think his coaching style has got worn thin there in Toronto, and I don't really think that front office knows exactly what they want to do with that roster.
They have
Nick Nurse is the guy. I think
they have a bunch of guys that basically do the same thing, right? Like outside of Van Vliet, because like he's really the only small guy on the court. Positions 2 through 5. Literally all do the same thing. They're all 6'6" and taller. They're all super long, and yeah, like they all do the same thing. I see your Nick Nurse. I think it's unfair to him because it's part of it's not his fault. Part of it is upstairs. I think Portland does Chauncey Billups bogus. I think they get him up out of there. Especially if
I can see that too.
I just think that's it is what it is. Same thing with what's his name in Washington, Wes Unseld. I think that's
they already say he's coming back though.
Same thing with Jason Kidd.
I'm talking about this time next. I'm talking like this time next year. I think.
Right.
I'm talking about before the offseason ends.
Oh, before the offseason ends. Okay.
Yeah. My end's Nick Nurse. I think the other guy who's potentially, I like the Chauncey Bill. I actually think that could be a real thing that happens. Doc Rivers, if this playoff series, if they don't make it into at least the Eastern Conference Finals, I think he will be out of a job.
I'm gonna give myself credit because I was on that train when we did off-season talks.
What about Rick Carlisle?
No, he ain't going nowhere.
No, I think he's okay. I think
he's okay.
They've improved under him as head coach, especially with the young talent there. I don't think you pull the rung under that. I think that's it. I mean, I think this is going to be one of those years where they the amount of coaching guys that coach used to get fired is going to be pretty low this offseason. Like, I don't think Billy Donovan's going anywhere. I'd be, as much as I predicted Nick Nurse get fired, I'd be shocked if that happened.
Billy D, good Billy D.
He said Billy D, good Billy D.
I'm just saying.
I'm telling you, if the Bulls had Shadow given that extension, I think Billy Donovan would be out right now.
Man. Well, Nick Nurse, and you know what? And I like the Nick Nurse thing because he just came out talking about something about he may. It sounds like Nick Nurse may resign. Honestly. Like either he gets fired or he just may resign because it sounds like he's mentally can't take it anymore.
All right, this is going out on a super limb because I just think I just think the message isn't hidden the same. That's just me. This team was a shot away from the finals last season, and you barely made it this year. Miami might have to recalibrate. They might have to hit the reset button.
On Coach Spo? That's bold.
I would be legitimately shocked if Eric Spoelstra
No, because
he's a lifer.
When you really think about that and really think about it, right? This team has been together for I don't know how long. They thought they had the missing link in Kyle Lowry, and Kyle Lowry got old really fast. Not you, David. Izzy shared the thing to the group chat where Miami thought they was getting all-star Kyle Lowry.
What the hell they thought they? I don't know what the hell they was thinking.
Jimmy Butler has a tendency to, like he has a tendency, like if he don't run himself out, the coaches get ran out.
I mean, we'll see what ends up happening, but yeah, I would be shocked if Eric Spoelstra got fired this offseason. But yeah, that's been our round one check-in. Thank you very much for checking us out here at the NBA crossover, the NBA playoffs. We are going to be back here on Monday doing XFL week number 10, previewing the playoffs there in the XFL before we get into mock NBA draft, NFL draft coverage, mock draft Tuesday, probably crossover on Wednesday, then full draft coverage coming to you guys a week from today as we have 7 days.
I say we hold off on the crossover until at least the first round is concluded.
Well, what I was going to do with the crossover next week is kind of preview some of these teams' off seasons that have already been eliminated. Like the Rockets, all those players.
Oh, kind of like what we did.
In the NFL.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we'll see. We'll talk about it. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us here at the crossover. Thank you very much, Prime Sports World. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'm David Huffman, Israel Rivera, TJ Hopkins. Gentlemen, what do we do here at the Prime, my friend?
We bring the heats. Izzy, are you still out and about?
I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm good. We bring the heat, baby.
Let's go, baby. 24/7. Continue checking us out. We'll be back here. We'll be back here next week. Y'all have a good weekend. Stay safe and enjoy some XFL. There's some good games this weekend. Let's go.
It is.
Yeah, for real.
And Brooklyn made it again. They're up 74-69 in the third.
That's what I was looking at. You know what, TJ? I'm sorry if I was mute, but I'm looking at this damn game. I'm like, Brooklyn is coming back. Hey, coming back. 23-7 run to start the fourth quarter. Ladies and gentlemen, Jesus.
We'll be back here. We'll be back here next week.